Yeah, that's a great segue to our next question, which was how do you make the decision of when to design in-house versus outsourcing it? What are some of the criteria that make it a good use case for one or the other?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. I obviously work in this business, but I'm happy to sort of look. The thing is, you always have to do what's best for your business. And it's actually a good time to talk about this as we're thinking of, that overall timeline, the overall stages of production. I think oftentimes during that evaluation stage, during the ideation stage, is when you should be figuring out also what team, which individuals, including what third-party firms or individuals will I need to bring to the table. And to Kyle's point, with the example of wireless charging, unless somehow you have on your team someone who's a PhD, R&D level wireless charging, maybe owns the or is their name's on the patents for some of these things. And if you did manage to hire that person, good for you. Part of the reason people say hardware is hard or hardware is unforgiving is because you cannot do it all in-house. And that goes for your Fortune 50 companies, mostly, as well as your pre-funding startup. Unless you want to get in the business of owning your own factories, your own physical plants, and I would argue, maybe if you're trying to make a consumer electronic hardware device, you probably also don't want to be in the business of owning physical plants. But that is a huge capital expense and also fairly small margins. So, you're going to be relying on manufacturing partners, supply chain partners. When you are building your bill of materials, there's going to be, there are going to be generic parts. There are going to be assigned components where you are very specific. We must use this Broadcom chip. We must use these capacitors, and please specify, they need to be unleaded. One of those sort of fun examples was, don't forget to specify you cannot have lead in your product. And then there will be components that are consigned. And so that might be something where if you have critical IP or other subsystems that you are very concerned about protecting, you may make those in-house. You may make those with a tertiary supplier that has no contact with your main CM, or you may do the assigned components for strategic purposes. You can do things to protect your IP, like we need 10,000 units, and this is my critical component, my critical IP. So I'm only going to give the factory 10,000 of these because I am going to certify that all of them work. Maybe it's probably good to build in a little bit of buffer, but that way, you're protecting yourself as well. So point of all that is many third parties that you need to work with. And so on the CM side, that may be obvious. But I think some other things to think about when you design in-house versus outsourcing to a development firm, it's again, those trade-offs of cost, schedule, and scope. And schedule is a tricky one. And Valentina and Kyle, I'd be curious to have your opinions on this too. But there's a phrase from the Navy SEALs, I think, that's slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Or did I get that backwards? Anyway, the point is, coming back to my initial statement of you can't rush the creative process. You may feel you're crawling at a snail's pace at the beginning if you outsource things. But the point is you are making sure that in terms of horsepower, all the horses are going to be running in the same direction. And so you'll actually at the end of the, as you get further down the process, you're going to be able to move a hell of a lot faster, possibly than if you're trying to do everything internally. Now that said, product development is very costly if you're working with an outsourced firm. So there are definitely other options, particularly if you're, cash strapped as a startup. I love folks who are very scrappy and creative. The ODM model is still one that's out there that can be explored, where the factory you contract with may have design engineers on staff, who can take on some of the aspects. If you don't kind of care how the sausage is made, for certain subsystems or for the whole thing, you can kind of hand them prototypes and say, here's one, make 10,000, don't care how you make it. But it depends, again, where your trade-offs are and what your priorities are.